Hi everyone and welcome to Fresh from My Garden. There are a lot of herbs and spices used around the world in different cuisines, and there are a lot of them that we use in our daily cooking. And many of these can be grown easily at home. So let's take a look at a few of the herbs and spices that we are growing in our garden. I'll also share some clips of my parents' garden and some spices that are growing there. The first important herb that we grow in our garden is mint. Mint adds a lot of freshness to dishes and is also used to prepare a chutney that is served with a lot of appetizers and starters. So, we really love the flavor and taste of mint, so we grow these in a lot of different containers in our garden. Now, mint is a very invasive plant and it can take over a lot of space in the garden. So, this is not an ideal plant to be growing in the ground. So, we had planted mint in the garden a while ago, and this is from then where it has taken over a lot of space. And then we had to remove all of these and transfer them into containers. But there are still spaces in the garden where this keeps popping up every now and then. The next one up is rosemary, and rosemary is something that I'm growing for the first time in my garden, and these are grown from seeds. I have only used rosemary in the form of dried herbs to make Italian dishes at home. I have never used them fresh. So I am not sure how the taste is going to be, but I have to give it a try. And I'm really happy that there has been a good germination. But in spite of that, this plant has been really slow growing, and I can't really wait to take a small harvest from it and try to see how it tastes. This is the Genovese sweet basil, and I planted basil in my garden because my kids love pesto, and I wanted to make my own pesto instead of buying the store bought ones. So, as you can see here, these plants have started flowering, but I've been getting a lot of harvest from these basil plants. And if you have watched another video on my channel, I shared how I harvested and preserved these basil leaves in the dried form. So I love this plant. It adds a lot of flavor to our Italian dishes, and some of them have gone to flower, but I'm going to try to save seeds from them so that I can grow more plants in the garden. And I have a few plants from which I have been pinching off leaves and harvesting the leaves, so those plants are still bushy and I'm getting a lot of leaves from these. And we've really been enjoying the fresh pesto that I make with this basil from our garden. Holy basil is another plant that we have growing a lot in our garden. And just like the other basil plant, these also have the seeds that grow and fall to the ground and grow a lot of new plants. So these are the seeds of this plant, and they are self propagating plants or self seeding plants, and they grow a lot in our garden. And these plants are really beneficial because they can be used as home remedies for cold and cough. So, this is a really beneficial plant to have in the garden. Many people add a bunch of tulsi leaves to a glass of water and let it steep for a few hours and drink that water, which is really good for our body, and it is something that will help our immune system get better. Curry leaves are another herb that is very important, especially in South Indian cooking, and they are used in almost all South Indian dishes. And it's a very flavorful and slightly pungent herb. So it has a very strong flavor, but it is really a flavorful herb, and this is something that we really cannot do without. And it also has a lot of medicinal properties, and it's also great for making a hair oil that helps to nourish our hair follicles and scalp and reduce any kind of scalp related problems and help in hair growth. Fenugreek is used in the form of leaves, in the form of dried herbs, and also in the form of seeds. So, fenugreek is used in three ways, and these fresh leaves add a lot of nutrition to our dishes, is really rich in iron, and is a great herb to cook with. It has a slightly bitter taste, but adding a few spices can balance out that bitterness, and it adds a lot of value and nutrition to our dishes. It's also easy to grow and fast growing. Coriander leaves or cilantro is another herb that adds a lot of freshness to our dishes. Coriander leaves, along with mint, is used to prepare mint chutney, that is a great dip for many appetizers. These leaves are usually used as a garnish for many dishes, and many dishes are incomplete without the flavor and the freshness of this wonderful herb. This is the Indian borage or the Mexican mint, and we also have the regular mint that we have planted along with these in containers. So, the Indian borage is also known as panikurka in our native language and is very helpful to treat fever in children. So, when we need home remedies to treat fever or any kind of digestion related problems in children, this is a special herb that is very beneficial, and we can extract the juice by crushing these leaves, and they can help to cure mild fevers and also digestion related problems. They are small, bushy plants, so they are really easy to grow in containers and can also be propagated easily from cuttings. So, I have a few of these plants growing in different containers in our garden. Coming to spices that we can grow in our garden, this is ginger, and it can be easily grown from rhizomes that we purchase from the grocery store or the supermarket. So these have been growing in a container, and I have grown all of these from the rhizomes that we get from the grocery store, and they can grow really easily, and they are not very fussy about care. So with very little care and soil that has good drainage, we can easily grow ginger in containers or in the ground, and they will be ready for harvest in about 8 to 10 months. Turmeric is another spice that is used widely in Asian cooking, mostly in Indian cooking, and it has a lot of anti inflammatory properties, and it is used a lot as an Ayurvedic remedy for several skin related or even digestion related problems. The turmeric rhizomes, once harvested, are sun dried and powdered, and the turmeric powder is usually used a lot in our daily cooking. So it's a very essential ingredient in our kitchen, and turmeric is something that we can easily grow from rhizomes. Now, turmeric rhizomes are available in grocery stores, so we can easily grow turmeric from those rhizomes. Now, this is a plant that we recently purchased a few months ago, and this is the cardamom plant. And cardamom is something that grows in places that have slightly cooler climate. And when we visited the nursery last time, we saw these plants there, and the gardener suggested that it would grow well in a container. So we purchased this plant and it has grown quite well. It was a tiny sapling when we purchased it, but as you can see, the plant looks really healthy and it has grown really well. And when it comes to planting cardamom plants, we need to make sure that the roots are slightly above the soil because it's at the base of the plant where these cardamom pods start to form. So that was what was suggested by the gardener at the nursery, and that's how we have planted this. This has just been with us for a few months, so we are hoping to get some cardamoms from this plant. Since we don't have too much of place in the ground to plant many of the new plants that we purchase, we have planted this in a 25-liter bucket, and it seems to be doing really well, and it has grown well since we purchased this plant. Cardamom plants also prefer slightly filtered sunlight or semi shade, so we have placed this container in the northeast side of our garden where it receives some of the morning sun, and but it is kept away from the hot scorching afternoon sun. Once this plant starts to produce cardamom pods, I'll definitely share updates on the channel, so stay tuned for updates from our channel. Here is a bay leaf plant from my parents' garden, and since they have a lot of space, they have this planted in the ground. And this is black pepper. So I have already done a couple of videos on black pepper on my channel, and they have a lot of black pepper that are growing below mango trees and a few other trees in their garden. So they harvest this black pepper and they clean it and sun dry it, and we also get a good amount so that we don't have to buy black pepper from the store. Black pepper is also another spice that has a lot of medicinal benefits. This is the nutmeg tree from my parents' garden, and you might have seen this already in other videos where I shared garden tour of my parents' garden. So they have a couple of these nutmeg trees in their garden, and nutmeg is a very useful spice in baking and also in a lot of Asian dishes. And since they have more space in their garden, they have a lot of these trees and plants planted in the ground. In addition to those spice trees, they also have a lot of ginger and turmeric growing in several parts of their garden, and I have also shared this in previous videos. So, these are a few herbs and spices that we can very easily grow in our garden. Most of the spices and herbs in our garden are all grown in containers. So, even in limited spaces, we can grow a lot of herbs and spices that we regularly use for cooking in our garden. The pepper variety that I had shared in this video is the climbing pepper, but there are bush pepper varieties that we can grow in containers. I hope you liked a view of the few spices and herbs that we are growing in our garden. Please do share the different spices and herbs that you grow in your garden in the comments below. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos and gardening related tips. I will also share updates as our cardamom plant grows and starts to produce cardamom pods that we can harvest. As always, we look forward to your support. Thanks for watching Fresh from My Garden.